podcast contains discussions of real criminal cases, including descriptions of violence, abuse, and other disturbing events. Some listeners may find this content too graphic or emotionally triggering. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This episode is not suitable for children or sensitive audiences. If you feel distressed at any point while listening, please consider pausing the episode and seeking professional support. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Crime KE podcast. My good name is Ajuma and I am a human rights journalist from Kenya. Now, this week we get into the murder of baby John Harris in August of 2021. Now, I just want to start by saying that from the sources that I was working with, I was not able to get baby John's actual age. And the details of this story are very horrific and heartbreaking, especially because the baby died in the hands of someone who had been entrusted to take care of them. On the morning of Thursday, August 19th, 2021, Faith left her young boy, John Harris, in the care of her 26-year-old sister, Nancy Njeri, that is baby John's aunt. At around 10 a.m., their neighbor, a woman who was identified as Michelle, said that she noticed Nancy was pacing up and down outside their house. Now, she didn't think much of it until she saw Nancy physically assaulting the baby. Now, according to court documents, and the details are graphic, Nancy kicked baby John, stepped down on him, threw him against a wall, and tossed him outside the gate. After all that, now, the sight of this horrified Michelle, and she was the one who screamed and raised an alarm in the neighborhood. A crowd of people showed up at the scene, and when they learned of what had just happened, they were not only horrified, but they were also angry. Now, they first took baby John to a nearby clinic for medical attention, but he was unfortunately pronounced dead on arrival. Now, at this point, the crowd wanted to take the law into their own hands, and they almost killed Nancy through mob justice. But they realized that she was not acting normally. She was acting really strange. Now, according to the same court documents, Nancy was seen adorning ties and marching like a soldier. So they chose to take her to the Soweto police station in Kayole, where they lived. Now, at the station, she was put in police custody and charged with the murder of her nephew, baby John. The baby's body was taken to Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital mortuary, where an autopsy was conducted 5 days later on the 25th of August 2021. The pathologist determined that the baby had died of a severe head injury caused by blunt force trauma. According to court documents, when her sister had asked Nancy why she had killed her child, Nancy said that she had been possessed by demons. The first medical exam was conducted on Nancy on 30th of August 2021, and the specialist determined that she was not sane at the time of the murder. Now, according to the medical reports, Nancy had experienced what was described as an acute psychotic episode in a catatonic state at the time of baby John's murder. Court documents showed that Nancy had been involved in a road accident not long after she killed the baby. And since that road accident, she had been acting very strangely. Now, after almost a year in custody and on medication, on June 21st of 2022, another medical exam was conducted on Nancy, and that second exam determined that she was at least sane enough to make a defense in the murder case. But again, it took another year for her trial to get some meaningful movement. In October of 2023, Nancy's defense entered into a plea agreement with the prosecution, which was the state. Now, according to the agreement, Nancy pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of manslaughter in exchange for leniency from the court. Now, her lawyer told the court that it should be lenient on her because she was a first-time offender, and 2, because she was remorseful for what she had done. The defense asked for a non-custodial sentence so that Nancy could reintegrate into the community. Now, a non-custodial sentence is a punishment imposed by a court of law that does not involve a prison term. Now, there are different types of non-custodial sentences, things like fines, community service, probation orders, and absolute and conditional discharges. Now, in a pre-sentencing report by the defense on January 30th of 2024, the defense say that their family, that is Nancy and Baby John's family, had already reconciled and they were not opposed to Nancy's early release if the court was to grant it. Now, on March 4th of 2024, the Milimani Law Courts in Nairobi sentenced Nancy to 3 years in prison. The judge said that these 3 years will be served from the day that she was arrested on 19th of August 2021, meaning that by the time she was actually being sentenced, she was remaining with less than 5 months in prison. Now, after serving the prison sentence, the judge ordered that Nancy be on probation for 2 years. Now, the conditions of the probation were that Nancy must receive psychiatric treatment and take medication faithfully. And she also must not commit any other offense during the period of probation. If she was to violate any of these conditions, she would have to undergo resentencing. Now, the presiding judge said that it is unfortunate that an innocent life was lost in a moment of sheer madness, and I couldn't agree more. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this episode. You can support Crime KE podcast by sharing this episode with your friends so that we can reach a larger community to listen to these cases. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at crime.ke, or you can find me on Facebook at Ajuma Millicent for the updates on the cases covered on the podcast. I have also tagged the podcast contact information and social media pages in the show notes for this episode so that it is easier for you to reach out if you have any feedback on this episode or the podcast in general. Don't forget to give the podcast a 5-star rating on Spotify and catch the next episode of Crime KE podcast on Thursday next week on the same platform you're listening from right now. Actually, I'm not sure if there will be an episode next week because I plan on upgrading some of the things that I use in creating the podcast. So if I'm successful, then there won't be an episode. But if I'm not, then there'll be an episode. Also, I saw a comment about the music in this podcast, and I guess I should also use this opportunity to say that if you are a producer and you're listening to this and you think that you are able to produce a good jingle for this podcast, then please reach out to me. But until next time, stay safe and remember, it is crime with a K.